Welcome into another episode of Locked On Phillies, and Zack Wheeler heads to the injured list with a blood clot. No clue when he's coming back, no timetable for return. Is this the end of the Phillies 2025 season?
You are Locked On Phillies, your daily Philadelphia Phillies podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, this is Locked On Phillies. I'm your host, Connor Thomas. Thank you so much for joining us today. We come to you as part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. You may know me from some of my other work in the sports talk space. I've been on air over at 97.5 The Fanatic, doing sports talk radio here in Philadelphia for over 5 years. I've been a credentialed Philadelphia Phillies media member for the past 4 seasons, and this is now my 4th year as the host of Locked On Phillies. Please make sure that you're rating and reviewing if you're checking us out in podcast form. We're available wherever you get your podcasts. You can also check us out on YouTube. Like and subscribe if you are watching us on YouTube today and haven't done that. Subscribing will get you notifications when new episodes are posted. It's free and super easy to subscribe, and it really helps us out here on Locked On Phillies. We're just a couple hundred folks away from hitting 5,000, which would be a big milestone for us here on Locked On Phillies. So appreciate everyone who's already subscribed and everyone who's going to. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Football season is around the corner. Visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your futures bets now. And football season may be here in Philadelphia with the Zack Wheeler news. Just real quick, because I got some comments on the most recent podcast that I put out at the end of last week about some audio issues. So I worked on the microphone and everything, and hopefully the quality of sound is okay to you. I'll be honest, I couldn't hear what you guys were hearing. Some commenters were saying that there were microphone issues. So hopefully it is fixed. If not, I apologize, and let me know in the comments if the microphone's still giving you guys trouble in listening, and I will continue to try and work on getting that fixed. But I think I've solved the issue, so sorry about that. Also, sorry about the Zack Wheeler news that we're going to have to discuss today, because I'm not in a good mood when it comes to the Philadelphia Phillies. And if you know me, you know I'm Mr. Optimistic, Mr. Positive, but I'm not feeling that way today with this team. We're also going to break down other stuff from the series in Washington. We're going to preview the series with the Mariners that starts tonight at Citizens Bank Park, because the Phillies do not have an off day until Thursday. They've been rolling for a while now, even though the 10-game road trip is over. It's still no rest for the Phillies, who could certainly use, I should say, a day off. But let's start with this Wheeler news, because to me, the Philadelphia Phillies 2025 season may be over. It may have ended this weekend with Zack Wheeler going on the injured list. This is a serious medical situation for Zack Wheeler. And first and foremost, credit to the Phillies training staff and the doctors that they have on hand and everything that helped diagnose this, because blood clots can be very tricky to diagnose, very tough to find. And they were able to do that, and they caught it, and now Zack Wheeler can get the treatment that he needs. The most important thing in all of this, because blood clots are, Rob Thompson talked about it. He said it's not like a hamstring injury or anything, right? Where, I don't know, your hamstring hurts and maybe you get better, maybe you don't, but your quality of life, like, you're going to continue to, it affects your baseball ability, but not your living ability. Blood clots can be legitimately a life-threatening situation. We've seen other athletes, professional athletes, lose careers over this. The first person that comes to mind is Chris Bosh of the Miami Heat, who had to end his NBA career due to blood clot issues. So I don't want to be alarmist and say, well, Zack Wheeler's never going to throw a baseball professionally again. But we don't have a timetable for his return. There's a lot that's unknown. These things are very tricky, very dangerous, and you want to put the person over the athlete. So the number one goal here is that Zack Wheeler is healthy so that he can continue to live his life, whether that's baseball or not. It's crazy even that we're framing it in that way, but that's how serious of a situation this could turn into for Zack Wheeler. And that's something that's reality now for the Philadelphia Phillies. He goes on the 15-day injured list, and that seems to be just a short-term roster move until they determine what they want to do as far as the long-term away from the team. But what I will tell you right now is I would not be surprised if Zack Wheeler is done for the year, right? That might seem defeatist. That might seem negative, but that's kind of the place that you have to start with this type of an issue. If you get him back at any point this year, awesome, great. That's incredible. But you have to consider the possibility, potentially even probability that Zack Wheeler will not throw a baseball again this year for the Philadelphia Phillies. And that's a major blow, right? We already talked about the human side of this. And the most important thing is Zack Wheeler being healthy as a person, even outside of baseball. But this is a Phillies podcast, and we do have to look at how it affects the team as well. And it does not affect the team in a good way whatsoever. The Phillies' contention status was built around having Zack Wheeler as one of the guys at the top of your rotation that's going to throw in the postseason. Like, he has been the guy for this team for 4 or 5 years now. And while Christopher Sanchez has stepped up big time to become almost a co-ace with Zack Wheeler, I'm still looking at Wheeler as different than Sanchez or Luzardo or Suarez or Nola, who came back, or Walker, or any of these guys that have thrown in the Phillies rotation this year. This starting rotation, regular season or postseason, starts with Wheeler. And if he's unable to go, I don't know how you look at this team and say, I feel confident in them to contend for a World Series. I don't think it's likely now. I don't think it's probable that they win the World Series. Like, this is where I'm at today. They are going to need major things to break their way if they think that they can win a World Series without Zack Wheeler as part of this rotation. That's just reality. It's infinitely more difficult now than if you had him out on the mound. And we don't know. So as much as I'm saying, like, you have to go into this with the thought that it could be the end of his season, it could very well also be him coming back. So I'm not saying this is definitive, but if he doesn't throw, what I do know is this team is going to have a very hard time winning consistently in October. Let's just look at this, right? What does the Phillies rotation turn into if Zack Wheeler is done for the year, if he does not throw another pitch for the Philadelphia Phillies in 2025? Well, your number one guy is Christopher Sanchez. But who's your two? Is it Jesus Luzardo? He's been solid at points, but he's very up and down. He can have a blow-up start out of nowhere, and we've seen that from him multiple times this year. Is it Ranger Suarez? That dude's currently throwing like 89 miles an hour. That is not someone that I feel comfortable saying, hey, you're our number 2 pitcher on a World Series contending team. Is it Taijuan Walker? Walker's had a nice year, but I don't know if I'm ready to put him as the second arm in this rotation in a postseason spot. Now, maybe I should look at the immediacy and not the history of Taijuan Walker here in Philadelphia and say, hey, he's been pretty solid this year. He can get some jobs done when you need to, but he's not a high velo guy. He hasn't been a big-time strikeout guy. He's a guy that pitches to some contact and some hard contact at points, and I don't know what he would give you in a postseason series. We haven't seen it in a Phillies uniform. Remember, he didn't throw in the 23 postseason, the 24 postseason, and we have not seen him yet in a playoff game for the Philadelphia Phillies. So I'm not exactly chomping at the bit to say Taijuan Walker is our number 2. And Aaron Nola, who we're going to talk about in the series recap when we look at the series down in Washington, he made his return from the injured list yesterday. He gave up 6 runs in 2 1/3 innings, and he threw a fastball at 87 miles an hour at one point. His velocity is still down. And maybe that was the weird 11:35 a.m. Roku start time where he couldn't be in his normal routine. And maybe he's not a morning person, or I don't know. But whatever the case may be, I don't have faith in Nola now. I don't have faith in Ranger now. I have a little bit of faith in Taijuan Walker. And I have some faith, but it's a coin flip, in Jesus Luzardo. And Christopher Sanchez, I have all the faith in the world in, right? He's a great, great pitcher. But now a lot gets heaped on his shoulders. Because without Wheeler, well, you just lost a guy that has been awesome in the postseason, one of the best postseason pitchers in the history of baseball by his numbers. And this is a team that, while the bullpen has been improved since the Joan Durant's trade, that's not enough for me to look at this bullpen and say they can be the calling card of this pitching staff. I don't think they can be. I think they can help you win games, but I think they can only close down great starts as opposed to, hey, we're going to win because we get to the 5th inning and then we could throw 6, 7, 8, 9 with big-time arms coming out of the bullpen and get the job done. I don't know that that's the case. Kerkering's okay. Strom's okay. Duran, we know he's great. Alvarado's going to be a big help to have back, but he's not postseason eligible. David Robertson, we'll see, but it's a 42-year-old guy who's sitting in the low 90s. Like, you are looking at this pitching staff, and all of a sudden, they went from a strength to a potential fatal weakness over the course of a month, maybe even less than that, since Ranger's been struggling, since you've had issues with Wheeler and now the injured list stint, which we don't know how long it's going to be. You have so many questions as to what the Phillies pitching staff is at this point. And that is something that this team could not afford because, frankly, the offense, they have hot games. They have hot stretches, but they're not consistent. And in the postseason, you kind of need consistency. You need the ability to tear the cover off the ball at a moment's notice. And they're going to try to do that. And I still do believe that there is a path to World Series contention for this team. But where before I would have said, okay, yeah, they're a World Series contender, no doubt in my mind. Now it's cross your fingers and hope. And hope is not a great strategy, folks. But without Zack Wheeler as part of this team, there may not be a great strategy for the Philadelphia Phillies. This may be where the Philadelphia Phillies season dies with the Zack Wheeler injury news. Going to the injured list with a blood clot, with no timetable for return, with a lot of concern for his health, with historical examples, I should say, of people not coming back from this or never being the same after this. And the other thing you have to consider with Wheeler, too, he was already planning on hanging it up after the 2027 season when his contract is up. What do you think this does to his mindset about how long he's going to pitch for? Does this make him call it early? Does this push him towards saying, hey, maybe I shouldn't be doing this anymore? Like, there's a lot to consider. Big time implications from Wheeler being unavailable. And it's much harder to see this team as a World Series contender without their best pitcher and one of the best players on this team. Arguably the best player on this team. I know Kyle Schwarber's putting together an MVP case, so you can put Schwarber in that conversation too. But Wheeler was one of the few guys that you absolutely could not afford to lose. And it feels like the Phillies might have just lost him for the year. So we'll hold our breath and we'll see what the treatment is and what the time frame is when we figure that out. But it's going to be a slow developing process, and they're not going to rush him because they're not going to put baseball over life and death for Zack Wheeler or anything that could affect him long term. And it's a scary situation. You feel for Wheels, you feel for the baseball team, you feel for the fan base, because nobody comes out of this in a good spot unless he comes back at some point. So it feels like the 2017-2018 Philadelphia Eagles when Carson Wentz went down with a torn ACL. And it's just like, well, there it goes. It's gone. Now that team won the Super Bowl. So is it still possible? In some reality, yes. Is it this reality? Are we going to get that lucky twice in Philadelphia sports? Forgive me if I'm sitting here today saying it doesn't feel like it to me. And that's just my take on the Wheeler thought. So that may sound defeatist. I'm not giving up on this team, but I'm just saying, like, if you ask me to put money up on them doing anything in the postseason, I don't feel great doing that today. And that's a bad spot. But we'll talk about the series in Washington coming up next. And we'll look at this from a lens of, okay, can they still get it done with what they have? What was good? What was bad? Who hit? Who didn't? Who pitched? Who didn't? And a wild situation with the closer as well, where we avoided disaster. And then, well, the Wheelers then kind of ran us back into it. But we'll talk about that as we react to the Washington series coming up next on Locked On Phillies. Let's talk about Prize Picks first, though, because this episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. And whether you've got your eye on big-name quarterbacks or breakout running backs, Prize Picks makes it easy to get in the game. Joe Burrow, Saquon Barkley, Josh Allen, Aaron Rodgers. There's some big-time names and big-time intrigue with the upcoming football season. Now, you know where I stand. I'm a Saquon guy because I'm a Birds guy. I don't think you can go wrong with picking him in your Prize Pick selections. But there are a lot of great names that you can look at with the football season getting ready to get started. And it's super simple to play Prize Picks. You just pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections. So if you wanted to do Saquon, more running yards than they're projected, and you wanted to do Jalen Hurts, maybe less the passing yards, because hey, if you're going to run the ball a bunch, maybe you're not throwing it as much as people expect. You just put that together, get your picks right. You can cash in and win up to 2,000 times your money. I've used Prize Picks for a few seasons now and absolutely love them. It makes it super easy to put together just daily lineups and everything like that. And it's very, very quick. You can do it in under a minute. So check it all out. And also check the flex play option. It's a total game changer. Even when one of your picks misses, you can still double your money. Prize Picks put their members first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. So download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONMLB to get $50 in lineups after your first $5 play. That's PrizePicks. Run your game. So, as they say in show business, sports, and everything in between, guy goes down, show goes on. The Phillies are going to have to continue to exist without Zack Wheeler for the time being and possibly the continuing future for the rest of the season. And that's reality for this team right now. So what you do, you don't just say, hey, season's over, we're done playing games, we forfeit, everything's done. They still have a 5-game lead in the division. They're still in position to win the NL East, to make a postseason appearance, and then cross your fingers and figure out what happens then. But there are some other guys that are going to have to step up in Zack Wheeler's absence, and we'll see if they're capable of doing so. We got some good signs and some not so good signs in the series in Washington. So the Phillies split, and that is a disappointing result. 2 games to Washington, 2 games to Philadelphia. You are the better baseball team significantly than that Nationals team. You needed to take 3 of 4. Now, if you want to look at it and say, oh, they were on the back end of a long road trip. All right, I get it. But you can't use that as an excuse when you're playing a team like Washington and you're in a situation where you need to try and take a stranglehold on this division as the Mets continue to struggle. The Mets are not going to necessarily make up ground the way that they're playing, but if the Phillies aren't taking more ground, they leave themselves susceptible to a comeback later in the season in the standing. So the offense is going to need to be more consistent. They go out on Saturday, for example, and they get shut out against Cade Cavalli and the Washington Nationals. Nationals do not have a great pitching staff. And Cavalli had a good day. The bullpen's still terrible for Washington, so you didn't take advantage of that. I mean, you had a rough time against Mackenzie Gore on Friday night, but you go out and you end up scoring late and you win that game. Thursday, it was a very rough offensive performance. You only scored 2 runs. Part of that was getting in the day of the game and having to show and go because of mechanical issues with the plane. But I'm not here for the excuses. I'm here for the Phillies to start being more consistent on offense. Yesterday, they scored 11 runs. That's incredible. Is that the team that they're going to be every day? No. But can they be a 5, 6, 7 run team day in and day out? That's more what I'd like to see. And maybe you got some good flashes, right? Kyle Schwarber's still hitting the ball out of the yard. Bryce Harper went yard down there. He hasn't been at his best, but he still has the ability to impact the ball game at any given time. Nick Castellanos had a 2-hit game yesterday, including a home run. He's been terrible lately. So it's good to see him get something going. I would expect him to be in the lineup again tonight. And hopefully this is a point where the Phillies say, okay, maybe this is the beginning, the spark of a Nick Castellanos hot stretch. We know he can turn it on, even when he looks his worst. Sometimes the guy just finds it. He's a big-time field hitter. So if Castellanos starts hitting, then you get Bohm back yesterday and he goes yard. You say, okay, well, all right, Bohm, maybe put him in the cleanup spot behind Harper, and then you have Schwarber and Turner, and then you bump Castellanos down. JT Realmuto bats 5th. Brandon Marsh, who has been swinging a hot bat over the past month and a half or so, has cooled off a little bit lately, but he bats 6th, and then Casty bats 7th. I don't know. You can do a lot with this lineup to retool it with Alec Bohm coming back if he hits well. Now, the result of Alec Bohm coming back is Otto Kemp gets sent down. Understandably, Kemp wasn't really producing all that much at the major league level. He had his moments, but he was what he was, a AAA player that was called up out of necessity. Maybe at some point in the future he'll give you something, but you'd much rather have Alec Bohm in that spot. And it was a good return for him. But then we've got to talk about Aaron Nola, because it's not just the offense that is questionable. Nola comes out yesterday in his return, and he only gets through 2 1/3. He gives up 6 runs, and he was just not sharp. And he wasn't throwing hard, and he wasn't spotting well. He looked good through 2, and then that 3rd inning was just a mess for him. And luckily, the Phillies still won the game because they had jumped out to a 6-0 lead. But Nola was supposed to be a guy that could potentially be a savior of this rotation. Losing Zack Wheeler would feel a lot better if you were getting good Aaron Nola back. I did not see good Aaron Nola on Sunday. Maybe I missed something. Maybe you guys saw something where it's like, oh, I'm actually encouraged by this that Aaron Nola did, but I don't know how you could be. The velocity wasn't good. The command wasn't good. The contact was hard, and it was often. So your rotation now has what, 1.5 guys you can trust, maybe 2 guys you can trust if you combine half of Jesus Luzardo and half of Taijuan Walker. And the Nola thing, I'm going to be patient, right? I can't just be like one start. Oh, he's terrible. Get rid of him. Don't let him start again. No, he has more resume than that. So I'm going to give him another start or two, but I've already got alarm bells going off in my head about what Aaron Nola is and is not down the stretch. So that was a major issue in the series, was you wanted to see something good out of him. You got something bad out of him on Sunday. So the rotation doesn't feel any more settled. The only really like dodged bullet in this series where the Phillies did avoid a majorly bad situation was Joan Duran getting hit by a comebacker on Friday night. I was at the game. I was losing my mind. I'm sure you probably saw my reaction video to that where I got my head like bent down, laying on my arm in the stadium there, because I just watched our big time trade deadline acquisition with a towel over his face because he was in so much pain get carted off in a stupid helmet cart. I was losing my mind. So you can't blame me on that one. I'm sorry, but I was really, really upset. And then the x-rays were negative. And then he was like, yeah, I'm 100% good. And then Rob Thompson was just like, yeah, if there's a safe situation today, talking about Saturday, we'll throw him. And he did end up having to throw in yesterday's game, and he looked just like his normal self. So, dodge bullet there for the Phillies. I mean, could you imagine losing Joan Duran and Wheeler in the same weekend? That would have been like curtains. Turn out the lights. It is over. At least with Duran back there, you can think, hey, maybe if we get it to like the 7th or 8th inning, we can win these games pretty consistently. But a lot of this is going to fall on the offense now. And the offense was not consistent in Washington, which is why you split the 2-game series. And now you also have a tough series against the Mariners coming up where you're going to see some tough pitching, a team that's been playing really darn good baseball for points this year. So can the Phillies give us something? This would be a huge, huge series to go out and take like 2 out of 3 and just really settle down the fan base to, hey, maybe they can survive this. But it's going to be a tough ask because of all those reasons we just laid out. So an unsuccessful series in Washington, an injury scare, then injury reality, and a whole lot in between where there's so much to break down. And there's only so much time that we have on the podcast. So as the week goes on, there will be little ancillary pieces of that series in Washington, some residual stuff that we will have to discuss as they continue to play baseball, the Phillies do. But hey, you're back home at the bank and the fan base is kind of reeling a little bit. I imagine the locker room's reeling a little bit. It's a big series against the Mariners, an opportunity, but also a potential pitfall. We'll preview that series coming up next and talk more about why that series is so big as we wrap up today's episode of Locked On Phillies. Let's talk about FanDuel, though, because August 26th, very important date, put it on your calendar, if I can say that word. It's officially FanDuel Futures Day, a brand new holiday for football fans who live for bold predictions and preseason hunches. For just 24 hours, FanDuel's giving you deals on NFL season predictions. So whether you're calling who's going to win the MVP, maybe you're looking at a long shot division winner, maybe you're ready to crown your Super Bowl champ before week 1 even kicks off. Now that's a bold prediction, unless you're taking the Birds. Then you might be safe. But either way, this is your moment. So maybe you take a flyer on the MVP race. Maybe you throw some money on Jalen Hurts, who is good odds right now for a guy who's going to be leading a team that's looking to defend a Super Bowl title. Maybe you're looking to pick who's going to win the Super Bowl. Maybe you don't think it's Philly. Well, maybe you look at an AFC team like Baltimore. And maybe you want to parlay some division winners and take some plus money odds there. There's a lot of great ways to do it. Visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your future bets now, because Futures Day is one day and one day only. Again, that's August 26th. FanDuel, play your game. All right, let's preview this series with the Mariners because, again, show goes on. Phillies have to keep playing ball. They don't get to stop for a week because Zack Wheeler went down. The guys get to collect themselves. No, and they haven't had an off day in a minute, but they'll get one Thursday. So this is the last series before they do get a day of rest, and it's a pivotal one. They're taking on the Seattle Mariners, who are 68-57. The Phillies, 71-53. So only 3 games different in the win column for the Philadelphia Phillies and Seattle Mariners. Now, the Phillies are the better team, but Seattle's only 1.5 off the Houston Astros out in the AL West. They are going to be probably a postseason team. you imagine. If not, they will be right on the cusp there in an American League that's starting to get pretty crowded at the top. But they play good baseball. They do a lot of things very well. Oh, and there is this guy on Seattle. Maybe you've heard of him. They call him the Big Dumper. Cal Raleigh's coming into town, and he has already hit 47 home runs this year. Do you think the Citizens Bank Park is a place that he's excited to play? Small ballpark and a pitching staff that's kind of trying to figure their stuff out right now. Raleigh is an issue. Now, here's where the Mariners do kind of struggle offensively, and this could help the Phillies. They have pop. They don't have a lot of guys hitting for high average. Their team leader in average is J.P. Crawford, former Phil's great prospect, who's batting .262 on the year. For comparison, the Phillies have Trey Turner batting .291. They have a couple other guys over that .262 mark. So .262 is not gaudy, but they're a pretty well-balanced team that also shows off some pop. They don't have any guys hitting .300, but they don't need it when they hit the ball out of the ballpark the way they do. And they also pitch the heck out of the baseball. So I think the way that you go after this, and in case you're wondering, by the way, Cal Raleigh also leads the team in RBIs at 102. Dead even with the number that Kyle Schwarber has there. Impressive that Kyle Schwarber has been able to equal that. So you got some big-time power from two guys in the series. That itself is worth the price of admission. Don't matter who's pitching. Don't matter who's fielding. If Kyle Schwarber and Cal Raleigh are getting at bats, you should be there or you should be watching. So that's fun, right? It's cool to be able to see these matchups of MVP candidate players that both just hit the ball a mile and are really fun players to watch break down hitters. Now, it won't be fun if Raleigh does it against the Phillies, but this is what baseball is supposed to be, especially this point in the year where we're in the latter part of August and we're starting to really ratchet up the postseason push for these teams. It's big time. So Seattle is a team that they feel like they need to win consistently to keep up with the Houston Astros out there in the West. So they're not coming in here like, maybe we'll just keep pace with Houston. We'll win one, we'll lose one, we'll lose one, we'll win one. No. They are a highly motivated baseball team that smells opportunity and has a darn good leader as far as Cal Raleigh is concerned. And let's talk about that pitching staff for a second. So tonight, you see Logan Gilbert on the mound, who's 3-4 with a 3.31 ERA, but a .98 whip. He does not allow a lot of base runners. Now, in 89 2/3 innings, he's already given up 12 home runs. So you can hit him out of the ballpark, a righty that you can get to. But in 89 2/3 innings, 124 strikeouts. He is one of the best strikeout arms in all of baseball. In fact, he was my preseason pick for American League Cy Young. I like Logan Gilbert a lot, except when he's facing the Phillies. So tonight's going to be a tough game. We'll talk about the other pitching matchups throughout the series, but just to give you an idea, you got Bryce Miller going for them tomorrow. That's a game that should be winnable, especially with Christopher Sanchez on the mound. You should be able to take care of that one. So game 2 should be a win for the Phillies, and we'll break that game down in full. But then you also see Luis Castillo on Wednesday, and he's got a 3.48 ERA. He struck out 125 and 142 and a third innings pitch. So not the Logan Gilbert level of strikeout stuff, but he can still set some guys down. Another guy, though, with home run issues, 18 bombs given up on the year. So if the Phillies want to win this series offensively, they may have to be prepared to strike out a couple times. But this seems like a team in Seattle where you may be able to outslug them. I don't know. But if you're looking at the over-unders on the betting lines for these games, I would take a peek at the over for pretty much all the games in this series. Now, tonight with Logan Gilbert on the mound and with Ranger going, maybe not. But Ranger has been rough lately. That is one of the other big storylines, at least for game 1 of this series. How is Ranger Suarez going to look? Because every pitcher in this Phillies rotation has just had their bar raised with the Wheeler news, right? You got to step up. Sanchez becomes the 1. Somebody becomes the 2. The other guy becomes the 3, the 4, so on and so forth. You get it. But so much for the 6-man rotation the Phillies tried to do. It didn't even last for a couple days, right? And now you're not getting the rest that you thought you were going to get your guys. And you're asking a lot more of who these guys are when they take to the mound. And Ranger has been rough lately, and he looks fatigued. And if he goes down or has some issue, well, then things get even bleaker for the Philadelphia Phillies. But if he goes out tonight and he gives you 6 innings of 1 earned run and strikes out 3 or 4 and just kind of handles business the way Ranger Suarez handles business when he's good, maybe you start to see a little bit of silver lining to the dark cloud that is the Zack Wheeler news. So a lot of stuff to be determined in this series with the Mariners, and we will see how it plays out at Citizens Bank Park later on tonight. We will react to everything that happens tonight, tomorrow, and we will talk a little bit deeper about the rotation and the setup of it. What can you do roster-wise to potentially mitigate losing Zack Wheeler? That'll be a conversation for tomorrow's episode. But that's all for today's episode. Thank you so much again for joining us. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Please make sure you're rating, reviewing, subscribing to the YouTube, all that great stuff that really helps us out. And don't forget to check out Mark Farzetta on Locked On Phillies Postcast, live after every game for immediate reaction, full episodes after the last out. So go ahead and check out Farzy on the Postcast and check out us on Locked On Phillies every time you can. But I will talk to you tomorrow on our next episode of Locked On Phillies.